Simplifying and masking my ignorance, my mathematical ignorance, I decided 3.7% from now till the end of the year, $7 is how I made this really easily. Let's move away from that and go into the other area that was mentioned. I want to start dealing with some of the specific measures articulated by the Minister of Finance. Approximately how much money on the 7% internet sales tax, internet tax that will be there, approximately how much money would you say Dr. has been deprived the Treasury from the Treasury as a result of internet shopping in the last year, and addition to that, I'm not compounding, but continuance of that. How will the ministry, the government, monitor this? There's two-part questions here. They're related. Please elucidate.
Well, your second question, your guess is as good as mine, but we're going to come to talking about that in a while. But the 7%, I was reading in one of today's newspapers, the minister, of course, was broached on that particular subject because, as I said, and as we read in the lead up to the review,
yes,
there was some concern, some anxiety that the levels of consultation that several stakeholders hoped would have occurred did not in fact occur. The minister started his presentation on Friday by, in a sense, apologizing for that and saying that in the interest of time he could not have the kinds of consultations that persons expected. But we'll wait and see what happens now. But moving back to the question of the levy, today's report suggested that you have something like $6 billion being spent, an estimate coming out of the Ministry of Finance of $6 billion being spent on internet shopping.
This is TT or US?
This is TT dollars.
TT dollars,
but
okay.
that is still an awful lot of money when you're looking at the precisely when you're talking about the kinds of budget deficits that we're talking about. So I mean, if we use that language and persons recall the kinds of numbers we spoke about in the budget, we realize that $6 billion is the allocation that a ministry got, for example. Yes. All right, so that is the order of magnitude, and the article in the daily newspaper also went on to say that one commercial bank is suggesting that 13% of the entire allocation is used towards financing online shopping. Now, one of the things that I want to use this opportunity to explain to consumers, when we shop online, Amazon, Walmart, Target, whichever retail chain we go on to, and you punch in that credit card number, and it says to you your bill is $2,500 TT dollars, and you say, all right, okay, my limit is $15,000, so that's $2,500 TT dollars. Amazon does not accept TT dollars. So invariably what you have just done is that you have spent $400 US or thereabouts, as the case might be. The call on your credit card, what your bank needs to remit to Amazon or to Visa or to MasterCard or whoever the case might be, is $400 US, United States dollars, even though you see on your bill that you spent $2,500 TT dollars. And I think that is something that needs to be understood
very
clearly,
yes.
So that the ministers, coming on to the second part of your question, the ministers' policy measure to implement the 7% levy is a way not of any way stopping you from online shopping, but for you to think twice about the amount of foreign exchange that you are in fact demanding in terms of your online purchases. And we know that we've become so much in tune with the global economy that when we have Good Friday sales or Black Friday sales or Thanksgiving sales or whatever it is, that Trinbagonians actually capitalize on those sales. And as I was saying at another forum as well, another way in which we see the extent to which we now engage in online shopping is the proliferation of these skybox entities that offer home delivery of items that you've offered online. So the 7% is a way of trying to control the urges to demand foreign exchange via the point and click, as I call it, the online shopping.
I'm very happy that you made that clear, because it is the real ignorance or the feigned ignorance that online shoppers would advance, that they really did not know they were using foreign exchange. Yes, you are.
And also when you go to the supermarket and you buy something that is imported, so you're also using foreign exchange. And you go to some supermarkets or consumer where you can purchase items, and almost the entire outfit is filled with very wonderful foreign goodies, and you see trolleys filled to the brim. That is foreign exchange. You're paying for it in $50. But that distributor or that supermarket chain is actually going to pay their suppliers abroad in foreign exchange, not TT dollars. The only people who use Trinidad and Tobago dollars are the people who live in Trinidad and Tobago. So the 7%. Now, the second part of your question was really, how is that going to be managed? And that is the $1 million question that has been on my mind, and I suppose on the minds of several other persons. And today's newspaper, the same report to which I was referring, the minister says that there will now be consultations with the banks.
And some of the online dealers, being in the United States myself, I know that every state, most of them, charge a sales tax.
Yeah.
And it means that the supplier have to provide information of people who do purchasing from your jurisdiction to the government. And I think that is the way probably.
Well, I don't know if that's the way they're going to go, because that could be. Remember, we're thinking of the U.S., but some people also purchase things in the United Kingdom and probably other countries abroad as well, other jurisdictions. So I don't know if that is the way he's going to do it, or if what the local banks are going to be required to do, which to me would require less cross-border sort of negotiations, is to ask the banks to then remit the 7% levy directly to the central bank. This is just a thought. I'm not too sure how it's going to be operationalized, but that to me would seem to be the less convoluted route. But even if that is the route that is taken, we know that our financial system is extremely sophisticated. So you have Visa, you have MasterCard, you have regular Visa, you have Gold Visa, you have Platinum Visa, you have Visa of all different color, Visa, blue, green, all sorts of things. And each one of these will have its own kinds of reporting arrangements within the particular commercial bank. So if you, Mr. Bishop, decide on Monday that you will shop online, you have sufficient financial wherewithal to shop online at 7 p.m. on Monday using your Visa card, and you go to Amazon, because the minister also has now clarified that it's going to be to certain amounts. Small amounts will not be subject to the 7% levy.
Right.
I don't know what small is, but let us presume small is $100 or less, or $50 or less. I'm not too sure what small is. But let us presume that you, Mr. Bishop, go online on Monday at 7 p.m. and you buy $500 worth of some particular item. You spend on Amazon.com. And let's say that is the equivalent of $3,600 TT dollars. The idea is that I'm imagining that you will see that recorded on your Visa card statement from Bank A, and you will also see some 7% levy added to that, which is then going to be remitted to the central bank, presumably. So that is the government's money, the 7%. The 7%. Where it becomes a little blurry for me is, how do you reconcile Visa as opposed to MasterCard, as opposed to Visa Gold, as opposed to Visa Platinum, and the transactions costs associated with the bank now having to implement all of these changes. So one, there is a question of reconciling the 7% due to the government and remitting that. There is also the question of reconciling different payments, because you might go on Monday and then you might decide on Wednesday you forgot an item and you might go back on Wednesday.
There's going to be a reconciliation cost, and who is going to pay that?
Well, I think we all know who's going to pay that. So what might start off as a 7% levy might
end up at 9-10%, as it were.
You call the numbers, but
I call the numbers because my bank charged me just for putting money to them when they should be paying me. But anyway, that's a whole different talk.
Yeah, and thinking it through, I think it is going to require. Presumably, the banks already had some sense that this was coming, so maybe they've already started
some things
to
in
deal
place.
with it. Yeah.
Dr. Marlene Attzs is my guest this morning. We are talking about the statements made in the revised budget. We're continuing to deal with some of these specifics. While we all agree that $31 billion in the past 10 years is unsustainable to this country, removal of few of our subsidies will cause some dislocation and a domino effect on food transport and the attendant costs being passed on to the consumer. Now, cognizant of this reality, are you comfortable, Doctor, that the infrastructural safeguards like price control inspectors and stuff like that have been put in place to safeguard against artificial shortages and price gouging? If we were on television, you would see that immediately a head started going left to right.
Absolutely not. I'm not comfortable at all. Because I think in October, when the first rolling back of the subsidy was put in place, so super gasoline moved from 270 to 311, and diesel moved from 150 to 172. And we immediately saw the increase in taxi fares in some areas and supermarket prices, etc., etc. And then related to that, we started seeing, that was also the occasion on which the VAT was rolled back to 12.5%, and we had the addition of some items to the VATable list. Some items that were previously zero rated were added to the VAT list. And what has happened since, notwithstanding the fall in VAT, what has happened since is that consumers have had to face higher food prices across the board. I mean, that is no secret. And the central bank reported recently in their monetary report in March that there has been an increase in inflation in Trinidad and Tobago, particularly food inflation. So even if we thought it was an aberration, the central bank has confirmed that there was an increase in prices. And I felt the government really was not on the ball in terms of implementing some kind of watchdog and consumer watchdog programs to ensure that the burden of that increase. I understand the fuel subsidy needs to be rolled back. I have no problem with the fuel subsidy being rolled back. But what I do have a problem with, because I saw that the reduction in the VAT rate as the government's effort of trying to reduce the burden of prices on consumers, and some of the other things they did in terms of the disposable income, etc., the tax rate adjustments. But when you are hearing the public outcry about the increases in prices and what appears to be price gouging, and there is little sort of, as far as we're aware, action being taken by the government to protect consumers, to me, that leaves you feeling very uncomfortable. So that when you understand, okay, so price of gas went up on Friday evening from $3.11 for super to now $3.58, and from $1.72 to now $2. These are not significant price increases, because the government has always, even when they were campaigning on the hustings, they were always very clear that it was not going to be an easy road. So, I think we appreciate that some of these measures need to be taken. But I think we would also equally appreciate if the government came out and said, I understand that sometimes there may be people may want to capitalize on these adjustments and try to engage in price gouging, and we are going to put our foot down to ensure that does not happen, and we have put these safeguards in place, X, Y, and Z. That has not been forthcoming. I don't know if that will eventually come out as something that the government intends to do, but I know personally as a consumer that there has been some very arbitrary changes in price